looking at another function of viruses. Believe it or not, viruses are at the base of the marine food chain. The base of the marine food chain. And so these small organisms, the small bacteria-like organisms, they live off of viruses. They can break them down, and they can use the DNA, the protein, and the fats, and the sugars inside of the viruses, not many, but some, and they use that as a basis for food. Like plankton is a good example. Plankton survive on that. They're filter feeders. They feed through what they filter from the water. Among those is viruses. And there are many animals that do that. And the viruses in the sea, they took a sample, 1 glass of seawater, and they found in that 1 glass 150 million viruses. 150 million viruses. So in this bottle here is about 150 million, no small number, enormous amount of viruses. And I can mention something else about the sea, which you may not be aware of, or at least not think about. The sea is a cesspool. They defecate in the sea, and they also eat the materials in the sea. So the seawater is both a urinal and a breakfast in seawater. And for that to function, there has to be a recycling system, which is a whole nother talk. So you don't end up killing everybody in the sea. And if you think about it, your blood is actually the same thing. In your blood contains waste products filtered by the kidney. It also contains food. Your lunch is broken down, and it becomes part of the bloodstream. Okay, what causes the problem? Since viruses are so important, I'll mention a few other uses for viruses. But what causes the problem? The problem is two. One, they are mutated. They mutate. Then they don't do what they're supposed to. When they are mutated, they end up causing problems because they're doing what they're not supposed to do. They're broken. They're damaged. So that's one problem. And the next problem is we end up with a virus which is in host, doing fine, no problem, and they escape the host and end up in your body. The viruses from China mostly are found in ducks and primates like monkeys. And for some reason they end up transferring from the ducks into people. And then from the people they spread throughout the world. And the reason that's a problem in China is because many Chinese in their house keep ducks as a pet, I guess. And the ducks roam around in their house. So the ducks get a new strain of a virus, and then it's transferred to people, and the people then go to the city and associate with other people, and it spreads throughout the world. Flu virus primarily, or many of them, are from that source. And one other thing I should mention at this point is that the common cold, the flu, are able to change their identification. It's like, best example is I had a student from France, and he had his French driver's license, and he had an English driver's license. And one day he was speeding, and he was stopped, and he thought, you know, I'm not an American citizen, I don't want to get in trouble. So he thought he would play a game. He took out his French driver's license, gave it to the police, and said, "Parlez-vous français?" And the police said, no. And he noticed the license, and he said, "Are you from France?" He said, "Well, Belgium, actually." And he said, "Pronounce it the French way, Belgium." And he talked to the cop in French. And the cop just, "Bye, see you later." He didn't know what to do. And my student told me that, and I said, "No, that's not very honest." He said, "Yeah, I know, but I thought I'd try it." And it worked. So viruses do the same thing. They can change their identification so the body cannot recognize them. When you become immune to one flu, you become immune only to that strain with that particular identification. And what happens is they have the ability to change the identification. Like my student had 2 driver's licenses. They change the identification. Then they come back throughout the world, and our body doesn't recognize them. Thinks it's something new. Now, some people, when I mention this, ask, can't they come up with a response that deals with all of the possible identifications? Well, there are hundreds, so I guess they can't. At least so far, they can't. There's just too many. Now, how about polio? That's a good example. Polio only has 2 different identifications, 2 different tags. And once your body becomes sensitive, it responds to both of them, polio can no longer enter your body. You're okay. So that's why once you vaccine against polio, chances are very small you'll ever get polio again. But once you're vaccinated against the flu, guess what? Next year, a new strain, start all over. And as far as we know, probably 100 years, there'll still be different strains of flu. So flu viruses can do this, adenoviruses can do this, polio viruses and others cannot. They can't do that. Coronavirus, we don't know. They think there's only the ability to make a couple of different identification tags. And that's all. So once we have a flu shot against the 2 most common, we're immune to coronavirus. And I could talk about, I'll talk about this first. All of those viruses, they thrive in their host organism, in the monkey that they belong with. They work hard for the monkey works hard for them. It's a host relationship. They do fine. No problem. No problem whatsoever. But as long as they're in their proper host, when they end up in us, there's a problem. It's not compatible anymore. And therefore we end up getting sick and sometimes dying, and our body has to then develop an immune response to the new virus. In China, they jumped from the ducks to people and spread throughout the world.